In a few moments, you will have an experience which will seem completely real. It will be the result of your subconscious fears transformed to your conscious awareness. You have 5 seconds to terminate this tape. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What is going on, everybody? How's it going? Thanks again for joining me for another BG Cast Wednesday live podcast, another We Are So Back Wednesday. I'm actually grateful for today, guys. You want to know why? I had a very amazing day. I feel like I was in samadhi all day long, which was a very nice thing. It's very nice to have my thoughts very quiet and just this clarity of the present. It was so nice, man. But I am so grateful for that. And this is the first Wednesday in 3 weeks. I was able to get off on time, get cleaned up, and get here to the house on time to do the show without biting the bullet. So that I am absolutely grateful for. But nonetheless, I want to thank all of the new subscribers and followers over on YouTube and Rumble. Thank you so much for joining the BG Cast family. I appreciate that so much. Here we learn together. That's something I say a lot, but we do. And I was actually just talking with my guest before, even though I've been on my spiritual evolution for 17 years now, I still don't have it all figured out, guys. I am just in the same boat as you. New stuff is always constantly revealing itself to me. You will never hear me say I have it all figured out. So thanks for joining the BG Cast family. And if you are new here tonight, please give a like, a follow, a subscribe. We're going to be diving into some very interesting stuff. So nonetheless, let's get to my guest, man. So my guest tonight is a member of the spiritual panel, and it's actually, you guys remember the ex-spiritual panel that we have that I host, Diana from Transcending Ascension hosts, and a couple, Kirsten, Mustaine, Sam, all of them. So he is a member of the Spiritual Collective panel as well. I actually got to know him because of his sense of humor. I thought he was hilarious. A lot of his posts where he would kind of call out some of the hypocrisy in the conscious collective and the truther community, just some of the stuff he would say. I think Schrodinger's Pope was definitely one of the ones that I absolutely laughed my ass off at. But he has a very interesting story as well, and he has some very interesting things to talk with us about tonight. I look forward to getting to know him on a deeper level. It's going to be cool, guys. So let me welcome to the stage Nick, aka Verdis DeMosays. What is going on, Nick? Thanks for being here tonight, man.
How goes? Thanks for having me on, Stephen. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, dude. I'm glad we can have this sit down and we can talk, man. We can get to know each other. And I'm happy about our ex spiritual panel, dude. I think we have like such a great group of people. I wouldn't change it for the world, man. And I like how we all kind of build off of each other and lift each other up. And we're bringing to the table these topics, these things that need to be addressed for healing. And all of these things, and at the same time, we're helping each other out with our own evolutions, man. We're bringing to light things, yeah, man. So, nonetheless, let's get to it real quick. Since it's your first time on the show, Nick, let's talk about your awakening, and let's talk about. I know we have a lot of them, but there's some people who just don't have one. But let's finally get to know Nick, and let's know that moment that occurred in his life, whether it was that burning bush moment or there was many burning bush moments that led you to see that there was more to this world and this existence that meets the eye.
Well, if we're getting biblical, it's less of a burning bush moment and more of a prodigal son moment, probably would be a better expression.
Hell yeah.
I actually grew up extremely fundamentalist Christian, if you can believe it, and kind of branched off because my dad's an extremely analytical headspace sort of person, very logical, and he started digging into everything. So it branched off when I was a kid to the Bible, Bill Cooper, Royal Rife, Sea of Energy, T. Thompson Brown. Got into a lot of conspiracy stuff, religious stuff, a lot of the detailed headspace things. And it never set. It never really set right with me. Never integrated right. And over the course of my early life, I had a lot of experiences. We moved around a lot. I had got the opportunity to meet a lot of interesting people. But when I was in my 20s, all of the, and the headspace feeling from before you wake up, where it feels like everything's just clattering and clashing around in your head. I can't take it. And I had my very first, what I consider truly spiritual experience, had a bad relationship a relationship that ended badly. And I was just sitting there sobbing on the couch and told God, I can't right now. I cannot serve you right now in this state, because I have no idea what I'm doing, what's going on. I need a break. I need a break from the obligation and a chance to settle, to finally find calm. And it was the most incredible experience. It felt like a full body energy hug around me, and the feeling of, that's fine. Come back when you're ready. And I also lost a lot of my perception as a result of that, like how we have that sixth sense. When I said I didn't want to be doing the work, well, I wasn't given the tools to do it either. It's like that was pulled back as well. So I spent the next 10 years doing a bunch of stuff, starting a family, and that brought us around to 2020, which is where Nick Act 3 starts, I guess is how you could say it.
I gotcha. And that was the time a lot of our hero acts and our war acts kind of came into play. So I completely understand that.
But that was an interesting experience, because I was actually in North Carolina at the time, out around Fayetteville, which is a very weird place, by the way. They call it Vietnam locally. I had the best job I'd ever had. Loved the people I worked with. Interesting folks. 6 figures. It was great. And a lot of stuff happened, but just short version. The marriage did not last, and it was not a pleasant thing. And I was set at a pivot point where, how to really express it, my guide phrased it that we don't make decisions, or we don't plan individual actions. We make decisions, we make choices, and everything flows from that. And I was in the situation of, on the one hand, I have the job, the career, the people around me that I like. On the other hand, I've got my kids. My ex moved back to Missouri, and I went, I can always get another job. I can't get another family. Don't get another chance at kiddos. And I said, I'm going to turn in my notice here, find something back there, be with my kids. That's the North Star of my life currently. I know I need to be with them to keep them safe. It's a whole story, but I made that choice. And I didn't realize it at the time, because, like I said, I was in that in-between state where I didn't really understand what I was choosing, but I chose service to my family. Sorry, I banged my leg earlier.
No, you're all good, man. You're all good. I was also going to say, man, Service to your family is service to the divine too. I just wanted
And
to throw that in there for you.
it very much is. And they're wonderful kiddos. I hope you get a chance to meet them sometime because they're
Absolutely, man.
very special critters. But I made that choice of service to others, service to my family, and I didn't realize at the time that I was choosing the divine, choosing awakening, because it wasn't conscious. And I spent the next year, I'd say, diving into absolutely every single problem that I had ever had, every conflict in my head, resolving sexual issues, past traumas, personality issues, and doing a little bit of research because I knew I could feel like that tickling at the back of your mind, something's going on here. So I'd start looking random stuff up on YouTube. My watch history is absolutely schizo, but I found something about the idea. I can't even remember who it was. Oh, it was David Wilcock, actually. I've always had an interest in ET and alien craft because growing up in middle Arkansas where it was totally dark, you could see everything, and I got to see a lot of really cool stuff flying around out there. So, the ET community, the UFO community kind of brought me over to his stuff, which I'm not a huge fan of Wilcock anymore. He took a left at Albuquerque, but
he took an insane left at Albuquerque. Yeah. That's one way to put it.
But he started talking about like connecting to the divine, connecting to alternate states, realities, lives, consciousnesses. And I was like, that's interesting. There's something to that. And like a week later, I'm driving home and I was no longer driving. My brain, my consciousness was in another body of a dude plugged in through a manual neural link to a starship that I was piloting. And like I started opening the windows and had some dude come up and just yank the plugs out of my head. I felt the searing pain. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? And he told me, your spiritual gifts have offset your usefulness. You will be mind wiped. I don't remember 5 miles of the drive home, if that tells you anything. Like I was not there. I was driving on autopilot and pulled off the road in 10 minutes. I smoked 2 cigarettes and had the first panic attack of my life.
Holy shit. So wait, if you don't mind me asking, so this was you consciously experienced somebody mind wiping you. That's
the events that led up to that decision, I guess, is the better way, because the neural link allowed you to perceive everything around you. And I was like, hell, everybody needs to see this. And I hit a button and opened the windows, like not, just the shields screen.
I gotcha.
So everybody could see outside, and it was like, oh, you are not supposed to do that.
Holy shit, man.
That was a very intense awakening. And after that had, started making contact with people on X, Twitter at the time, and started running into people. They started talking to me about a lot of the wonderfully weird stuff that we enjoy so much now. And the more I talked, the more possibilities occurred to me. Like things that I went, oh, hey, that might be a possibility. Oh, hey, I wonder if I had any past lives. Hey, guess what? I get to relive a bunch of war crimes and resolve that past trauma. It's like World War I, by the way, was not fun. I'm just saying.
I can imagine. Well, who are you? You said in the group chat, I thought it was hilarious. Like, could you imagine a negative being like ascending and lived like 94% of their life in negativity and having to work off all of that karma? I was like, no sane entity would want to do something like that.
Sane.
Sane, exactly. Sane. We're talking sane.
If you think that if you pull that off, there might be some reward, I can kind of see that mentality attracting people like politicians. Just saying.
No, you're dead on with that, man.
Just
No, but I
saying.
want to say,
There's a guy that's been stock trading, copying Nancy Pelosi's stock trading, and he's made something like 14 million this year.
I didn't know that, man. But like you said, a sane person, and we know that politicians are not sane at all,
Oh,
man,
yeah.
at all. And I wanted to say, man, I really resonated with your awakening story. It sounds like you had a very profound one, and one of the things that I find interesting is that we both actually came from almost somewhat of a fundamentalist background. I've joked on this show many a times. I grew up in the middle of the schism. My mom's side of the family was Roman Catholic. My dad's side of the family was Greek Orthodox. So
Oof.
I was sitting, standing, sitting, standing, kneeling, confessing.
Hey, that explains why you're in such good shape.
Dude, I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you. But again, like you said too, like you felt things didn't sit right with you, and I want to say I'm sorry about the marriage. I wanted to extend my condolences about that, man. And
best thing that ever happened to me, honestly. I learned more from that than anything. It hasn't been good on the kids, but other than that, it's probably been the best thing that ever happened to me, because it cleared my slate completely. I don't have preconceptions about what relationships are, about what my place is. When I came out of that, I just blank slated who I was in a way. It's like not so much like being blanked, but just like going through the list of everything that had ever bothered me, everything that was a problem, was a trauma, dig deep into it. And the two interesting things that I'd like to speak to, because I know we've got a lot that we would wanted to cover today, but the two interesting things were that I did not come at it from a study perspective. Like, beyond that the pants look nice, I know nothing about yoga. I haven't studied extensively unless I've been like nudged to study it. Like Law of One material was a big turning point to me. Reading that, there have been several books that I have read through, things I have studied, but largely I've been kept back from doing that. Almost like as a test case for how does somebody approach this without the ancient knowledge, the things that have been taught and sorted through. How do you just go in cold to the awakening process? And now I'm actually able to translate that for people, because previously that was the biggest challenge, was how do you explain consciousness to somebody? How do you explain merging with the universe? How do you explain this stuff? Well, one of my favorite quotes is from Mark Twain about, my apologies for the length of this letter. If I'd had more time, it would have been shorter. The old books, the texts, have been filtered down and condensed so that there is so much information in every single word that unless you know the totality of it, you can't understand it, because you have to know all that material. And I mean, in case you hadn't noticed, I'm not getting any younger. To help wake people up, I don't have people are not going to soon have the option for, here, spend 6 months reading all these books and then come back and talk with me. It's like, no, I've got to be able to explain, okay, we're fast tracking this stuff. This is not going to be fun. But what I did end up learning through it was that the process I went through, and as I mentioned before, I've been working on, and I've got a stack of notes now. I've been working on the process that I went through and finding similarities to both the old teachings, which, again, as she said, brevity takes time. But there's a distinct process that everybody's awakening is followed. And I think that there's actually a way to explain the process in a way that anybody can understand. And that's what I've been really working with lately, because what I realized from my own self, and I try to keep your show PG, but I had
Go ahead, say whatever you want, man. We're on Rumble. Have at it. Have at it.
fair. So from the age of like, well, as long as I can remember, 8, 9, 10, somewhere in there, I had the same feeling that you've seen plenty of times on social media, feeling like I should have been born female. You've seen people say that I was born in the wrong body. That was something that had always been rolling around in the back of my head. Seriously considered transitioning, seriously had a lot of that stuff going on. And I never understood why. It was like a loop that I couldn't find the end of to actually get into it. And in the process of my awakening, I had to dive into that to find the bottom, as it were. But what I realized later, through the help of some of my guides, I had to match my energy to the events that caused that trauma loop. So if normally we're up here and the event that set it came in down at this level, in the process of immersing myself in it, I was able to crash my energy to the point that I could tune to that frequency and communicate with the experiences that set it off, which was a past life trauma, and not a fun one. Let's just say that was a unpleasant reliving. But I was able to drop myself to the level of that and experience it. And by experiencing it, I was able to alter the outcome of it. And the funny thing is, part of dropping that experience was I actually met the incarnation of the person I murdered back in that era and told them about it. Like, this is going to sound insane, but
no, dude,
happened.
I'm hearing some bravery here, dude. Keep going. Yeah, dude.
And the funny thing is, I actually called him up, I don't know, a year or so ago. I've lost track of him since, but that unlocked his whole life as well. Me being able to have that experience and sharing that with him unlocked a mass amount of trauma that he was able to disperse. And I was like, man, I'm sorry about all this that happened. He's like, no, it's been great. I feel like I'm alive for the first time in 60 some years.
Well, hell yeah.
But, like we were talking about, like on the show title, Destroying Dogma, there's this dogma that you need to constantly raise your energy, raise your vibrational state, raise yourself up and attain. I had to go the flat opposite. I had to go to the basement to catch the elevator up. And if I hadn't done that, it would just be keeping to repress it. I've been up since 3:30.
It's okay, man. Don't worry.
If I hadn't had that experience of digging down, because you, like Diana said on her video last week, I think it was, or earlier this week, you tune yourself to the signal you want to pick up. And the same, it's not just let's go up and catch this. To resolve stuff, you have to go down and catch this one too, because when you tune that signal, that dark signal, the old trauma, the old problems, it allows you to actually communicate with that point and resolve it. And then you're not going on trying to ignore that stuff and tune into high frequencies. It's the basement frequencies are gone. And I went through, there were 4 or 5 massive traumas that I went through. One was that murder incident, another in World War One, a second one in World War One, which was an interesting
enough.
confirmation.
Yeah.
It was as a German officer in the artillery and chemical corps. Yeah, I was the guy who ended up giving the orders very angrily to fire the shells at Ypres, which was one of the most dangerous days of World War One, with around 11,000 casualties in the space of a morning.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the one who pushed everybody to do that. So, yay, war crime karma.
Dude, I mean,
So
well, that's what you were talking about in the
then I
group,
get a
remember.
confirmation. Then I got a confirmation on that because I had that experience. I got to relive that and watching the British lines disappear into a green haze. And literally later that day, my mom called because she's a huge genealogy nut. I give her crap about, talking to dead people, ironically. And she calls me up, hey, your cousin's whatever in Germany? Well, she found some more records. And she sent me the pictures. Did you know that this ancestor of yours was in World War One?
Oh, wow, dude.
And she sent me the picture, and he was an officer in the chemical corps.
Oh, man, dude. Did you turn white for just a second? That's just what I have to ask, because
she handed me the picture, and I started doing the impression of a fish. Just huh?
I would have been doing the same thing, dude, especially it's something that, oh man, to have the divine just point that out to you like that. That's something like, special, bro.
Okay, I get it.
Dude, I was gonna say, man, like the one thing I want to commend you on, I want to kind of go over a little bit what you talked about just recently before. Number one, that's some brave ass healing, dude. And you highlighted what everybody needs to be doing to heal themselves, and even how we're talking about demolishing dogma, that's one of the biggest things. We see the dogma in our conscious collective. Everybody's all obsessed with it, like you were saying, the higher frequencies, the higher centers. We still have this mentality of oh, I'm only in the higher realms. I don't have time for the lower shit, or oh, I'm done being a human being. I want to go back to the higher realms. And I'm like, no, you chose to be a human being, and that's why you're here. Because if you didn't choose that, you wouldn't be here. But no, dude, that is because one thing I want to say about you is, man, too, for tackling that problem. We see, or that thought loop too, because we see this happen in our world where people get entrenched in that particular thought loop, and they embellish themselves in it, and they allow it to encompass them. And and what this does is, through their free will, they make these radical changes to themselves that they might not even know what the source of this feeling or this thought loop is. And the fact that you decided to grab the bull by the horns and say, nah, man, we're going to the lower frequencies to see what the hell's going on with this shit. Like, dude, that's nothing but props, man, and nothing but respect for that. And the other thing I want to say too,
thank you, is
nothing, dude, because a lot of men, and I'm going to tell you what, a lot of men would have that thought loop and they would flat out ignore it. They wouldn't do the work to actually see where the fuck it's coming from. And the fact that you were in that, I can imagine you were feeling kind of strange about it, and you took the bravery route, the warrior route, and you were like, fuck it, we're going in. We're gonna go see what the fuck, where this is coming from. And look at what it did, dude. It opened up doors for you. It opened up healing. You healed somebody else in the process.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like that's something monumental in and of itself, man. And the other thing I want to tell you too, real quick, is I agree with you. When it comes to, like you said, you weren't getting any younger. I'm not getting any younger, man. I'm 37, and all that. I'm approaching 40 here soon. And when it comes to a lot of the old books, right? I completely agree with what you're saying. You have to be very well versed in parables and spiritual speak, in order to really gather a lot from it, the older
Yeah.
books. But and not saying that can't be done. Like, you can train yourself to read those books, but we're in an age where ergonomics, and being ergonomic with our awakening is coming into play as well. So it's like, no, and I
Very
commend you
much.
for that. And I notice a lot of people in our group, we have that knack of like breaking down these esoteric concepts like on a 5th grade reading level, that like that anybody can understand, anybody can pick up, and anybody can look at. So, and that's the thing too, man. It's like, I hate to say this phrase because everybody thinks that I'm automatically talking about the New Age movement. No, I'm not when I say this. So I'm just prefacing this. But we're in a new age right now. We are, dude. We're in a new way. Okay, there's new ways being formed to cultivate our connection with the divine. There's faster and more efficient ways to do it. And honestly, man, I want to see what you do with that. I'd even like to, I'm sure everybody in the group wants to work with you on it. I'd even like to help you with that too, man. Putting together something, maybe a guideline or a book that can give people kind of like a framework or an outline,
Yep.
Of what to experience when you're going through your spiritual awakening. Like, these are the things you're going to experience. It's not going to be pretty at times. Trust me on that. You might wake up and scream into a pillow just for the fuck of it. You know what I mean? Because you're having a mini dark night of the soul or whatever it is, man. But no, I agree with you on that. And I think, it's one of the biggest things about the dogma in this community that you brought up, people getting obsessed with the higher centers. It's doing yourself a disservice. And you've seen that, dude, because you did not, you did not run from that. You didn't ignore it. You went down into those deeper, darker pits of yourself, of your subconscious mind, your conscious being. And, this is the real work that needs to be done. This is what's going to help drive everything.
And that was something that became very obvious to me as in the process, because a good friend of mine once phrased it this way, that communication is about one mind giving information to another. It doesn't matter if the words are correct or wrong if you get your intent across. And I've been trying to figure out how to communicate these experiences clearly, because I know that I'm not normal. I have apparently a very broken fear response, which is why it's like, oh, hey, cool, that's a neat experience, let's go. And I know not everybody will, but it's also like, that's how I ended up speed running it. I wasn't afraid of this. I didn't go into it with any preconceptions. And too many people, this is my opinion, everybody has a different perspective. I think too many people are afraid to look bad in this process. Like, I was listening to Divine Guidance, and ever so often Divine Guidance would be like, hey, guess what? It's Friday. Go get a bottle of whiskey and down half of it tonight. You need to drop your frequency. It's like, great, Divine Bender. Okay. I guess, but too many people come at it from a perspective that you need to have beliefs, and there is a right and a wrong way to do things. There really isn't. It's
Exactly.
like, as long as you aren't violating the free will of others and incurring yourself more karma to go resolve later, not recommend, 1 star. As long as you're not doing things that violate others' free will or that violate the natural laws of the universe, everything else is pretty much on the table.
100%.
Love your neighbor as yourself, love God. Christ put it pretty succinctly. Like, everything ties into that. If you're not hurting yourself, your neighbor, or a creator, do what you need to. And too many people,
Absolutely.
I think, want to look good in the process, want to look holy or divine or whatever. I like
Oh,
the
yeah.
fact that you just kind of send it and not really worried about what people think, because this is right. This is what we need to do. This is practical. Well, that goes against this teaching. Well, who cares? It works. You know, it's like the military axiom. If
100%.
it's stupid, but it works, it's not stupid.
Well, too, the one thing I want to say
And
too, you brought up, man, real quick. I know, so like, and just what you said, like, there's, and what I think that comes from is there's still an air of fundamentalism that's in our
Mhm.
community. A lot of people get caught up in the hyper logistics of everything still, and one of the biggest things that I want to say is we're well past that at this point in time. We have seen that. I even almost call it like a blue collar spirituality. I know Diana has even brought up this term before, and that's what I say to a lot of people who think that their way is the only right way, or my intel is the only right intel. I bring up this it's this Vedic saying, and it goes, do you want to know why the crown chakra has thousands upon thousands upon thousands of lotus petals? And that is because there is thousands upon thousands upon thousands of ways to connect with the divine. And that is why the crown chakra has that many lotus petals, man. So like, and
that makes sense.
that's the truth of it, man. And a lot of people, like I said, they get caught up in that air of fundamentalism. Like, speaking your truth is, to me, is one of the most spiritual things you can do. Not everybody's going to like your truth, and you most people are aware of that when they're going into it, and like, and people like you and I'm like you in that aspect, man. I don't fear to a default. Like, if I saw the Giants running down the hill right now, I would look at you and be like, you got the spear? I was like you got the slingshot? All right, we're gonna have a fun time. But like, and that's the way to be, man. And it's and even when it comes to, speaking your truth on that level and saying things how they are, like you were saying, a lot of people are like, well, that's not spiritual. Well, like we're one of the biggest misconceptions of our community, and this comes from the general collective as well, is they think a lot of us spiritual people are just these pacifistic pushovers, who just literally just roll over and take it. I know Gandhi, because he was mainstream, kind of set that example with that. But in reality, man, a lot of us in this community, we're fuck around and find out. Like we really are. And like, like we choose peace because we've gone the other way, and we've seen how the other way goes, and we want to avoid that if we can help it. So that's why we choose peace, So exactly what
Well,
Karen's saying.
I'm very much on a defensive mindset. I'm not going to go attack you, but if you show up, it's not going to end well for you.
100%. And that's how you got to be, man. And it's like, and that's why, like, even there was a video that came out. So we have a couple. We have Karen said, "Shadow and sovereignty, thank you, beautiful honesty." And embrace the cringe, power and authenticity. Indeed, Karen. Once you embrace your cringe, you're finally free. We have Don Rogers, Mr. March 4th Productions. I've said before, I was street before I was spiritual. And then oh yes, one of my favorite sayings, Karen, it is better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. Absolutely, man. And that's what it is, man. And and we're
Heck yeah.
redefining spirituality, man, because like I just said, blue collar spirituality, it's not all about fundamentalism. You don't have to leave society and go to a freaking monastery stay there. We're at the point where we're bringing the divine into the everyday life. We're at the point where we're not worshiping, we're embodying these principles. So yeah, that's the road, I think, from here on out, man. You know, and we're going to see the fundamentalism kind of fall to the wayside. We're going to see a lot of that dogmatic thinking fall to the wayside as time goes on, and and ultimately we just have to keep doing our parts by being us, man.
Yep. And just putting stuff out there is an enormous help with being able to say, this is who I am. I'm putting it up here. Like, you go on my Twitter, that's the handle below my name if you're curious to go on X. My stuff's up there. You're going to see all sorts of random stuff. Tabletop role-playing games, battle tech, furry shit posting. You know, it's like, whatever. That's an interesting story, by the way. I have no idea why I'm supposed to be in that community, but I was bullied by my spirit guides until I did. So
very interesting. Very interesting. But one thing I want to ask you about, because this is something that you've brought up in a lot of our group chats.
But you want to find a bunch of really authentic, very creative people who are incredibly good at visualizing things that are not normally seen on Earth.
Dude, I mean, dude, I'll tell you what, like, this is the thing about me. I have a philosophy in life. If you ain't taken from me or mine or hurting me or mine, I don't care. I absolutely, and I'm open. I'm open to seeing to what you have to offer. I'm open to seeing and things like that. But you know, I have actually, my mom said she appreciates you. She wanted you should. My mom's in the chat tonight, so yeah. So, she's been popping in more and more. Thanks for being here, Mom. Appreciate that. Yeah. So, but one thing I want to talk to you about, you've talked about in your chats a lot, and this is something in our chats we've had in the group. You have some off-world guides that you've been working with.
Yes.
And this is something I think a lot of us have begun to experience in our spiritual evolution. And I know there is I know for people who are, I know we have silent people who are experiencing things like this that maybe don't exactly come out and, you know, talk about it or announce it or go along any of those lines. But maybe your story here tonight on how you ended up meeting these guys and these experiences that you've had with them can help people kind of gain an understanding of what they could potentially be going through.
Yes,
because
sure.
when you encounter something like that the first time, at least the first time I did, I joked it was like staring into the sun, but not from Earth, but being right up on the sun and staring directly into it. So yeah, if you don't mind, man, let's hear about the off-world guides you've been working with and how they've helped you.
Would you mind real quick if I kick the fan on?
Absolutely. Go right ahead, man.
Be right
no
back.
worries.
One second.
Yeah. No worries. Guys, I want to say much love in the chat tonight. It's really awesome, man, to see all you guys here. Kyle, I'm not ignoring you. Here we go. I wanted to show this up. Watch an Orthodox, a Catholic, and a Protestant argue. I'm like, wait, aren't you all Christians? That's another story for another time. I will do a show on how ridiculous the different sects of Christianity can be when it comes to arguing with each other.
Okay.
Oh my God, Don. Jeez, man, you're gonna pull it. God, thank you, Don. I appreciate that, man. Yeah, no, and my mom likes to hear this stuff because she always used to call me her old soul when I was a child. So she kind of knew I was going to turn into the individual I am today from the get-go. So definitely
She did a good job.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it, man. So yeah, let's hear about some of your off-world stories. Yeah, let's hear this.
This analogy just came to me, so I'm going to preface this real quick. It will be fast. So, most of us have one of these.
Mm-hmm.
A phone. Do you know how this works? Like, could you actually build a new one?
If I had some schematics, I could maybe figure it out, and that's giving myself a lot of credit.
Yeah. Now they work with technology we don't understand. Like, you and I could not build a new one of these. In fact, I probably couldn't even fix it. They work on that, and they use bandwidth to communicate across the internet, which is kind of a technological collective consciousness if you think about it.
Absolutely.
We function in much the same way as that phone. We don't actually understand how we function. Like, you couldn't build a human just from scratch in the basement. We also have a certain bandwidth, just like our phone. Your Wi-Fi can only push so much data. Every bit of data that goes through your head is a part of that bandwidth. And if you are still linked to those old memories, old traumas, old threads of life, it's occupying bandwidth and leaving you with very little to play with. It basically slows your download speed to the point that these entities, these spirits, this realm has a hard time connecting with you. As you go through and resolve those traumas, your bandwidth increases to the point they can actually communicate clearly. Instead of trying to get at this on 144p, it'd be like upgrading it to 1080. You know, they can still talk with you, but you're not hearing that clarity. It's bad bandwidth. And so after I had gone through my year of hell, I had resolved like a bunch of the really big stuff. Things were starting to finally feel like they settled down. I decided, you know what? I've earned it. It's been a long week. I'd worked 60 hours. I'm over this. I'm going to do a detox bath, like there's some Epsom salts and I think frankincense oil and lavender oil, nice hot bath, sit there, have a glass of wine, and just soak until the water's cold. It's like, this is nice.
Dude, that sounds amazing. I'm not even gonna lie. That sounds amazing.
Hey, I feel like it's nudge. Hey, you should listen to one of those YouTube videos while you do it. It's like, but I just want to sit there. You should listen to one. Okay, fine. I'll listen to one. What am I listening to? Contact Your Spirit Guides Guided Meditation. It's like, all right, cool. That sounds fun. So I put that on. I get like half hour, 40 minutes in. And we all experience that inner monologue. And when you have an inner monologue where you know those thoughts are not yours, and you get this mental picture of a big ass dragon looking at you and going, hello. The bath is less relaxing suddenly. I'm like, what the fuck? Who are you? Oh, I'm your guide.
Interesting.
Congratulations, it worked. Like, yeah, but huh? So he started laughing because dragons, it turns out, have a dark sense of humor and they're complete smartasses, and I love it. And he started like just stopping by anytime I was relaxed or not consciously working on stuff, giving me the history of the predecessors of the reptilian race, giving me stories, showing me how to visualize things, like how to visualize wings, how to visualize flying, how to feel the air on your face, how to use portals, how to use teleportation, how to use all this stuff, how to create a mental nexus of memories and astral connections. I'm like, why? He's like, yeah, don't worry about it. Okay, cool. And I realize now it was basically teaching me how to fine tune that bandwidth control, like to clear the static, to hear clearly. Like, hey, what color am I? Like, get myself to see those colors, to actually see things clearly, how to feel, how to take on a different form in the astral, and the fact that different forms can do different things. Got the groundwork done, and I was kind of cussed him out and left him laughing his ass off. And he's like, oh, don't worry. I'll check in occasionally, but I have stuff to do. Now you get to meet others. It's like, what? And so it started with just kind of random drive-bys. Like I'd get that inner thought, hey, go outside and look up. And there's a star that just starts going like this. And then I get the mental image of who's in the ship talking to me. Like one time it was a bunch of these little like 4 foot tall fuzzy guys that kind of looked like miniature baby Sasquatches, and they were just kind of like, hi. It was just like no words, just like love. Good to meet you. I'm like, what is this, like an astral loving drive-by? I mean, okay, hi. I love you. And then they just cut it off. I'm like, okay, that was weird. And as it started to become where I could recognize consistently when it was an external contact, that's when I started getting in contact with the Syrian lady from Sirius, not Middle East. And the conversations that I've been having with her, a lot of them, I've shared what I can. A lot of it is personal. Like, here's what you need to be doing.
Totally understood.
A lot of questions, but our off-world neighbors are fascinated with us because we apparently are just a walking exception. Humanity does not follow any of the rules that the universe expects. The same things, we can do things that the other races literally can't. We are a walking statistical anomaly, and they're really interested to see where we go. And I've mentioned, this is like a conversation that I could be here for 4 hours and 2 pots of coffee on and still not cover everything. But one thing that has come across very clearly is they're, quite frankly, a little bit, most of these races are a little bit pissed off that people regard them as phenomenon or entities, or they're like, we're family. You don't look at somebody and be like, hello, human intelligence, may I ask you a question? It's like, hi, what's your name? I'm Nick. So many people are treating them, and one of the things is, after we've kidnapped some of them, I mean, that's not exactly a mystery. They don't like being treated like a science experiment because they saw what happened back in the 50s. So when people are starting to use these very non-personal, sterile terms, it gives them the yips on it. They don't like that. It's like, you're eyeing me as a non-entity. I am a thing to study? No. And they don't like contacting people that regard them as an object or a science project.
100%.
They want to meet friends. I mean, if you've ever been to therapy, do you feel like, the therapist looks at you as a job or a friend?
That's there's some that have looked at me as a job, and there are some that I've spoken to that honestly kind of took it to that almost a personal level. But no, I get what you mean. Yeah. And I agree with you. I've gotten that too.
That they want to have a relationship with us. Most people have too much static, not enough bandwidth to communicate clearly. So they'll send feelings, they'll send images, they'll send impressions. Pay attention to those, because sometimes you will get like specific colors, specific thoughts, things that'll direct you toward the things that will allow you to have a higher bandwidth and better connection. 100%. But they're not going to bother with you if you're just like, oh, look, it is a UFO operator. Like, hi, my name's Bob. I'm from the Pleiades. Nice to meet you.
Well, I agree with you too. And the one thing you brought up that made me really happy for you that you can trust what you're dealing with is you talked about the personal stuff. They're really their game on trying to help you. You know what I mean? And that's what I go through with mine. I joke mine come in, like I said in the chat the other day, they come in and they slap me the fuck around a little and they're like, this is all the shit you've been messing up on, and this is what you need to work on. But now that we're done with that, we want to tell you the stuff that you are doing good on and that we appreciate. And that's usually
awesome.
that's usually how it goes in. But lately they've been actually quite happy with me, which I've been grateful, because when they're not, they let me know, and they do so in a very abrasive, almost like redheaded stepchild kind of way. They're like, yeah. So
I've heard that angels are not exactly nice. They're just kind of like, listen here.
Very much so, man. Very much so. And I mean, and that's kind of how they work with me too. Like, they don't give me any. They give me insights from time to time on certain things, like they will, but like most of the time it's like, this is what you need to be doing. This is what you need, the steps you need to be taking.
That's cool.
This is this and this. Like, yeah, they're like, it is. And that's how, when I heard your story, I was like, I felt it, because I felt those feelings. You'll get like that feeling, just even the feeling to look up when you walk outside. And you'll look up and you'll see that. And true, dude, they are family. They don't like being viewed, like you were saying, almost like as a non-being, almost, man, like this, like an object of some kind, because they have the divine consciousness within them as well. So it's like, that there is that mutual respect there.
Yeah. And I mean, they don't want to be showing up and you're treating them like you're the guy at the tax office. Hi, what can you give me? It's like, I just wanted to talk. So I don't know, that's just my perspective. But if you want to meet people, whether they're human or not, go and meet people. If you just want to see UFOs, I mean, you can go see UFOs, but it's a UFO. We've all seen them. I want to meet the people that are on it.
Same here, man. And and that's something I think, I share that with you, because that's why I think it all honestly came into full blown came to fruition for me, because ever since I was a kid, even my mom's in the chat, she's going to definitely validate this too. I've always wanted to meet something from another planet or like another dimension. It was like a want of mine. Like, it was almost like a homesick feeling.
Yeah.
Like it was almost like, it's like, you're out there and you're like, you go outside at night and you look at the sky and you're like, man, like I know there's something there that's calling me. Like, there's something there that's connected with me. And when it actually happened to me, and that's the thing too. And that's one thing I'll tell a lot of people, if you are trying to achieve this, you have to drop your preconceived notions of how you think it's gonna go. And because that's one thing I think that stops a lot of us, from experiencing a lot of this stuff, is we get these preconceived notions. Here we go. She even validated it. Absolutely, drawing aliens since he could hold a pencil.
That's great.
Dude, but it's like a lot of people, they get like, even I'll tell this story real quick. Even with astral projection, man, I'm like, I had a hard time astral projecting for a long time. And because I kept holding the preconceived notion of it to other people's stories. I expected that my experience was going to be like everybody else's experience, but it wasn't. And I remember I sat down to do an astral projection Kundalini Yoga Kriya, and I told myself before I started, I'm like, all right, dude, drop whatever you think is supposed to happen and just allow it to happen the way that it's meant to for you. And as soon as I did that, man, I dropped that preconceived notion. It happened for me. And my experience was very, very different than others. Like, I didn't see myself leave my body. I didn't see a cord, but what did happen is my whole entire awareness expanded into the astral realm. And then I was there in the astral realm and I was navigating it, but like I didn't have the typical thing. So that's just one thing I want to throw out to everybody who's watching or listening is if you're looking to have these kinds of experiences or you want to make this connection, drop your preconceived notions of how you think it's going to go or how you want it to go and just allow it to happen the way that it's meant to happen. And that's just something I wanted to add.
Yeah, for sure. So,
well, damn, man, like I got to say, dude, like, I felt like what you said too, man, you know, like the feeling, they'll send you the feelings because that's what they first started doing with me before now what they do is they send me visual language. It's very interesting. It's almost like these archetypal symbols that have like information in them. And like, I'll get the symbol. I'll know what it means, but like, I've experienced these. The visual language thing is pretty interesting, man. Like there's the hyperfractal mathematic geometry language. There's the archetypal symbol language that's from like the archetypes of your collective unconscious. And then it'll integrate itself into me over the course of a couple of days. Like I'll understand it when I see it, but like as far as like putting it all together in the conscious sense, like, you know, being able to formulate the words and stuff, that comes a couple days later. But no, man, like I'm completely blown away. And I'm grateful that you have formulated and established this connection because this is the beginning, man. Like, you know what I mean? You know, like how we were saying in the group chat, we are disclosure. We are going to disclose. Yeah. And this is where it begins. You know, we make the effort to open ourselves up to this communication and to these experiences. And through that, we open the door to meeting our higher dimensional family and things like that. So.
And again, you know, there's a reason I put my handle down there. Just that one right there.
Yep.
DM me. Call, you know, talk with me. Post with me. Look, I mean, you've seen what I've been sharing. I am not at all even remotely afraid of talking openly about stuff. Nothing to anybody in the chat, anybody who's viewing this, you can't say anything that's going to bother me or make me think you're weird. You're good. So talk with people. We're here. Steven's here. Well, she's actually that way. That's west. But, you know, we want to help. We want to talk about this stuff. I mean, respect our time, but don't feel like, well, I can't say anything because this sounds crazy. Believe me, this is just like what I've said here is just like a drop in the bucket of the insanity that the last 5 years have been for me. I know that the stories that have gone around, like with you, with David, with some of the stuff Don's talked about is pretty wild. You know, these people are not afraid. We're not afraid, and we will help. Give it a chance.
Absolutely.
Because on the other side of it, it's so freaking cool. Like, not even the astral or meeting off-worlders, just that peace inside where you feel like a pond that people have been throwing rocks in the whole life, and now it's finally settled, and it's just like inner peace. It's great. Like, that alone
peace
is
within the chaos. It's that peace within the chaos. And I did, guys. So I did, of course, as you always know, in both the Rumble and the YouTube descriptions of this video, I do have Nick's X account listed there in the links. Did you right, my friend? Yeah, of course. and that's the number one thing it is. It's removing the fear, because the biggest thing, and you know, I was talking about this on Sunday with Diana and Don too. You know, when you're afraid to live in your truth, you're dimming your divine spark. You're not living in your authenticity. And, you know, and the number one biggest thing I think a lot of us have seen on our spiritual evolution is what they call the real world is fake and gay. I mean, when you really want to take a look at it, this is not the real world. Like, you know, it's like everybody's like, you know, get with the real world. I'm like, what? This world? No, this ain't the real world, man. This is
paying taxes.
Yeah. Screw the IRS. I already said we should normalize sending jars of poop to the IRS at freaking at tax time. Like that's there's a few people who have actually kind of put that forward.
Actually, one of the best ones I ever saw was somebody. There were two really good ones. One, a dude paid his taxes in pennies.
Yes.
5-gallon buckets of pennies. Have fun.
Yeah.
He may have knocked him over in the office too. The other one was the dude got the engraver out and engraved a chunk of steel with the check. It's a check. It's legal. It's 65 pounds. Have fun. You want to cash it? Take it to the bank.
Well, dude, we have to absolutely normalize this kind of behavior, though. This is the thing, we have to, because if we don't, they continuously, man. I'll tell you what, I knew a guy, man. So this is funny. This is kind of going off topic, then we'll hop back on. So I used to work with a guy. He actually got his natural person status from the IRS. He was actually a contractor I used to work for in the DC area. Oh, and I asked him because, I was in the baby stages of my awakening at this time. I already knew the IRS was something that we could do without in this world. And, he was awakened too. So we were chatting and he kind of ended up telling me how he got his natural person status from the IRS. And I looked at him. I'm like, how'd you do it? How long did it take? He was like, my friend, it took a lot of money, 10 years of court cases, and a lot of bullshit. He goes, but I finally got it and I am tax exempt. He does not have to pay taxes anywhere because when you look at the Constitution, that's, we know, I'll probably do an episode on this in the future for those who don't know. If you want me to do an episode on this, let me know. But the straw man thing, because under the Constitution, you cannot be taxed as a natural person. So this is why they pull out the social security number. This is where capitis minutiae comes into play and all of that. The way your name is spelt on certain documentations. Yeah. So that's where
I know a lot about that because I did that for years. But then again, back then the government would actually follow their rules. Now, I wouldn't roll with it personally now because yes, by the rules, that's correct. Do they care?
Absolutely not. No, absolutely not. And that's one of the things too. Like, and that's the biggest thing, not a lot, because technically, you are tax exempt as a normal person. You are, but it's the straw man. It's because they threw capitis minutiae. So I'll even go into it slightly real quick. But for those of you who don't know, it's the way your name is spelt on documentation. So when you're referred to as the natural persons in any kind of documentation, only the first letter of your first name and the first letter of your last name are capitalized, but everything else is lowercase. So this is actually capitis minutiae minimus. And what this is this is you being referred to as the natural person. This is how you'll get like certain letters in the mail, things like this. But then you have capitis minutiae media, which is where the first letter of your first name is capitalized, but your entire last name is capitalized. And what this is like the halfway point. And I guarantee you, next time you go to the hospital, check your wristband, because that's exactly how it's going to be spelt. You're going to have the first letter of your first name capitalized, but your entire last name capitalized. And then what you have is capitis minutiae domini. And what that is where your entire name is in capitals. I mean, look at your driver's license, look at your birth certificate, look at your social security card, look at when you get bills in the mail, like look at all of that stuff. It's going to be under that, but that's how they do it.
Yeah, the whole thing was originally started so that way that corporations could be classed as a person, and it allowed them to dodge fiscal and criminal responsibility because they're classed technically as a person, but who's the person? Who do I bring in if I want to arrest them? Yeah, the whole thing is, if you haven't watched it, some of the best backstory is the film, and it's on YouTube, called Century of Enslavement. It's like an hour and a half. It's the history of the 3 central banks of the U.S. It doesn't go into any of the sovereign citizen stuff, but it lets you see where the where and the why and the how. So again, when you get into this stage of the life cycle of a central bank, though, the rules are basically suggestions at this point.
Dude,
if not a violation checklist. So
it's man, yeah, we know, and that actually, I've seen that documentary, and that's actually one I highly recommend to anybody if you're on the fence about the banks and what they do in this world. I highly recommend that. But nonetheless, man, I want to dive into this topic because you had me so interested about it when we were talking about it. I want to talk about these bioreactors real quick, man, because now, because you've been turning me on to some stuff that I haven't necessarily seen before, or I haven't really even had the chance to dive into. So if you let's talk about these bioreactors and what they're capable of. And I do have the photos I can bring up too, if you want me to bring those up as well.
If you like, let me give a little bit of backstory though, because about halfway through this, I think we're going to see you turn really red when the light bulb comes on.
I'm waiting for this. I'm going to be 100% honest. I'm looking forward to that. Let's go.
So this is one of the best kept open secrets. Have you ever wondered why, when you look up like Merck, Johnson & Johnson, Abbott Laboratories, they're all classed as biopharmaceuticals?
I've seen this, yes.
Nobody ever asks why.
That's a good question. Why
do you know how your drugs are made?
Let's hear it.
Everybody has this idea of like chemical laboratories and factories with like vats of stuff. But to go a little bit Morpheus here, drugs aren't made, they're grown.
Now you've caught my attention.
Specifically bioreactors. I actually have, since 2016, I have worked for companies that either build, repair, or maintain bioreactor systems, which is a very specialized field, and you literally can't go to school for how to do it. It's something you can only learn on the job. So I build these things, I maintain them, I have been inside them and worked on them, been inside Merck plants, Johnson & Johnson, Abbott, which Abbott, shady company. I don't have time to get into that rant, but just look up the Depakote lawsuit. You get a good picture.
And the one thing I want to say is Abbott actually makes a lot of health and fitness products too. So if you see something that has an Abbott symbol on it, stay the hell away from it.
Abbott, every time they come out with a new drug, parcels off a piece of the company and gives them the drug, creating a new corporation. So when something goes wrong, bankruptcy. That way there's not enough assets for anybody to seize for the lawsuit.
It's just the illegal
shit
they do.
Yeah. It's up to about 120 now. I see it. So a bioreactor, if you want to pull up the overview schematic, I think it was the second one.
Yep, I got you right here. Hold up. Pull this up. Boom. And let me share it. Let's get it going here. There we go.
So this is the overview of a bioreactor, and there's a bunch of different variations. This is the type that I build, which is a impeller design, and that's turning slowly, like 6 RPM, just enough to keep everything moving inside and not clump up. But in the process of, I have to backtrack a little. I was working on a very, very large project for a drug company that I guarantee you have heard of. They were putting in a brand new line, and they were building a lot of bioreactors for it. So me being the 145 IQ that I am, I played really dumb hick with one of the engineers and got him to tell me just how smart they were, profit margins, expected projected return on investment, and how these things function. So that vessel, if you look, it has liquid inside, stir stick. What you're not seeing, and if you could bring up the one of the 4 vessels, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, let's do that real quick. Hold on.
They are essentially a giant yogurt maker. You know how you'll just ferment stuff in your yogurt maker or crock pot? That's basically what they do on an industrial scale. These things can go up to like 30, 50,000 liters if you want to get into a really big one. But this is per the engineer. What they'll do is they will start those off with a sugar water solution, glucose and water. They'll bring it up temp to the fermentation temp. Then they will add just a handful of bacteria, typically E. coli, same thing that everybody's all paranoid over. And the bacteria will have whatever drug they're going to grow implanted into them. So when the bacteria divides, as long as the nutrients are there, it duplicates the molecule that was in them. Grows at an exponential rate. The nice part, see that one all the way on the right, that little bitty one? That's a seed buffer train. The one on the right is the seed tank. There's a piping skid that goes from the bottom of the main tank, feeds back up into that, and that's your starter. So once you get your first batch off of there, you have a permanently self-sustaining biopharmaceutical reaction. You never need to engineer another bacteria like that again. You just keep growing it. So
holy shit.
That is a seed train. That's what you use to get the starter batches, and then they'll be put, and I couldn't, good luck finding a picture of those things installed in a facility. They go up to damn near water tower size for the hold tanks.
Jesus.
And one of those will produce about 5 kilograms of pure, I mean, they have to drain it out, centrifuge it, all that stuff. There is processing involved. A lot of water. The smooth jacket has a steam heat exchanger. They're fairly complex, but not a lot of moving parts, so not really a lot to break on them. And you'll produce about 5 kilograms of pure drug out of each 5,000 liter bioreactor every 30 days.
Holy crap.
You saw the math I did, right?
I saw the math you did.
You don't have to bring them up, but that is for the name brand of the drug atorvastatin, the most commonly prescribed drug in America, at 14.33 cents a pill, 10 milligram. You get 100 pills per gram, 1,000 grams to the kilogram. It comes up to $71 million worth of product every 30 days per reactor. Typically, they're running a train of 10 of them.
It's a lot of freaking money, dude. And they're just basically creating it out of thin air.
At the exact cost of, once they've got it developed, the total cost is sugar water. That is literally all they do is add glucose, a few nutrient supplements, like a lot of the heart meds use zinc. They'll add zinc solution in there, and water. That is why I sent you that picture of the island of Puerto Rico. And the reason why Puerto Rico will never become a state, because Puerto Rico has we have no import price, no import fees or tariffs on stuff coming from Puerto Rico. We do pay on stuff going to Puerto Rico. There are 17 biopharma plants on the east side of the island that are at least listed on Google Maps. Probably a few more that I missed. Each one of those is a place that produces drugs, because the only taxes that are paid are stuff going to the island. What's going to the island? sugar water, nutrient bags. And what's coming back to the U.S. from Puerto Rico? Millions and millions of dollars worth of raw, uncut drugs. Legal.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah,
course.
you've definitely peaked me to 120 now, because that's oh man.
So you're talking maybe, I don't know, half a barrel of corn syrup essentially, and then you just add it to the water and mix, and then 30 days later you get $71 million worth of drugs come out the bottom ready to centrifuge. So this, and by the way, the lifetime on those tanks, we actually did a maintenance job on a tank that was built in 1973 and it was still running. So with basic maintenance, and they're automated, they clean themselves in between batches and divert everything to hold tanks and the works. You don't have to touch it. Just make sure it's running. That's literally it. It just prints money. The Bayer plant in Chicago is, I want to say 4 acres of bioreactors producing aspirin, and has been for the last 40 years.
Oh my God.
They said they
They
make
had-
about $40,000 an hour per bioreactor profit for 40 years.
Well, this should definitely be a red flag to a lot of people, because I mean, we look at the pharmaceutical industry and what they have the audacity to charge people for some of these meds, and just to know they're creating them in a biological process from glucose and water. Yeah, that should be
the hard part is getting the drug isolated and getting it in the bacteria. But people don't think big enough about this, because you can make anything that way that won't kill a bacteria. They will faithfully reproduce a molecule exactly how it's made. So all you have to do is provide the nutrients and just get a few of those molecules into a bacteria, and now you can produce whatever you want. This is alchemy, essentially.
It is alchemy. It's exactly alchemy.
And it's something that has been strictly chained up for profit by the drug companies, because if you could envision, I don't know, let's make nanotubules that way. See if the bacteria can do it. Let's make microcrystalline structures that way. The bacteria will do it. What can we create this way? Because they faithfully reproduce the thing every time. Like, some of those molecules are sensitive to right hand versus left hand orientation. They will produce it the correct way every time.
For those of you who don't know what that is, let me just put a little bit of info. So when we look at certain molecules, we have L and I believe it's L and D. All right. Yep. And L is the left-hand configuration of a molecule. So you see something like an amino acid like L-arginine or L-phenylalanine. That is the left-hand orientation of that amino acid or that molecule. But then you go into the D side, like, as a sweetener, we have D-phenylalanine, which is the right-hand orientation of that amino acid. So yes, when it comes to different molecules, there's both a left hand and a right hand orientation of the way it's configured. I just wanted to throw that in there. Keep going.
And they can do very different things depending on that orientation too.
Yeah, because you look at like I said, you look at L-phenylalanine, and it has a processes for neurotransmitters in the body, and then you have D-phenylalanine, which acts like a sweetener, which actually is incredibly not good for the body. Mm-hmm. So like, you're looking at one format of it that's completely fine for you, but then you have the right hand format of it, which is actually not that great for you at all. So absolutely.
Yeah. So the options on these things, and if you want to pull up that picture of the really complicated tiny reactor.
Yeah. Listen,
I used to build this. Yes, that includes the piping, the computer skid. Those things were a bloody nightmare.
I can imagine as somebody who's ran pipe, I'm looking at this and I'm just like,
it's all
a
high grade
lot.
stainless too, and the stuff is miserable to deal with.
is
some
that
days.
stainless steel tubing that you got to bend just very carefully, or it's like what, like $100+ a stick for like 4 feet?
Well, that's retail price.
That's retail price. Yeah. So no, but I know exactly what you're working with. I've worked with it before. Yeah.
No, we have some of these that have built out of straight C22 stainless, which is, last time I checked, $23 a pound scrap price.
Mhm.
So they're not cheap because every single thing on there is hand built. But
I can see that.
You can look at a 40 to 50 year lifespan on the tank, and if you take care of the piping and don't allow the monkeys to throw it around too much when they're maintaining it, they're basically endless. As long as with some basic maintenance, valve checks every 6 months or so, you can produce batch after batch of drugs at any point. These things are a very, very well kept secret. Pharma does not like talking about them because one of these suckers, there's, on the negative side of it, every biopharmaceutical plant is 30 days away from producing biological weapons, by the way. Just in case you're curious.
Well, I mean, we're looking at this right now, and that's definitely what's next in line.
We actually got some repair tanks in from some company, and they had a label stuck to it that said anthrax. So that was fun.
Okay, I'm sure that
we
we
evacuated the shop and had the guys did the work on a Saturday with 2 people there, just in case, because anthrax. It was from a research laboratory too, and those are always sketchy. But if you think about it, they're basically bacteria that are making crystals. If there's anything we can use microcrystals for, we have a way of essentially producing infinite quantities of them.
And that's what. So I'm wondering too, because they could.
I've been thinking this might be a way to duplicate monoatomic gold,
dude,
on an industrial scale.
We're building one of these now. Are you kidding me? We're building one of these now.
The bacteria will copy the structure faithfully. The biggest problem with monoatomic gold is getting it non-crystalline, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you put the bacteria in there with the monoatomic gold implanted in them, let them divide. As long as there's gold in the water solution, they will continue to produce the monoatomic. They'll break down the crystalline and produce the monoatomic, and then you just centrifuge it out.
That is so and see, this is the other thing. I'm wondering.
Now, again, this is in theory. This is in theory because obviously I don't have one of these to play with in my backyard, and I don't know anybody that's using them for not making drugs. So
we need to change this. We need to get one to play with in our backyards at this point, because now it's like. But I'm wondering. So I don't know. Have you ever heard of a quasi crystal? Do you know what a quasi crystal is? So I'm wondering if
familiar.
No. Well, the reason why they're awesome is because they actually they blow away the previous narrative of molecular physics. Like they blow it completely away, because when you look at crystalline structures, you see things in 4, 6, and 8-sided geometry. That represents the molecular building blocks of these compounds. But when you get a quasi crystal, you get 5, 10, 12, and 20-sided geometry, and that's not supposed to happen in molecular physics. You're not supposed to have that kind of geometry in a crystalline structure. So what it does is, but it's rumored that quasi crystals can be utilized for like different scalar technologies and things like that as well.
I see that because I'd figure inside the lattice there would be enough interstitial space that you could have resonant cavities.
Absolutely.
be like stacking D20s up. You're going to have a pyramid shaped space in the middle of them. That's interesting.
So so the only place that they're naturally found that we know of as of now are in meteorites. That's the only place that they're naturally found. But there was a guy in 1984. His name was Dan Schechtman, and he actually created the first aluminum quasi crystal. And what he ended up doing, don't try this at home for the love of God, because I know the process. All right. And you need to make. So what you do is he heated I think it was aluminum and another alloy. He heated it up to 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit, and then he immediately threw it into liquid nitrogen. Yes, you would need a lot of protective equipment if you were doing something like this, because you're literally taking something from 5,000 degrees and throwing it into something that's 100 below or even more Fahrenheit. And yes, there's going to be, but this is how he actually, hey, Sam, thanks for being here. And
Morning, Sam.
Yeah, morning, Sam, over there in the UK.
Actually, with plasma, that would be fairly easy to do if you modified a plasma cutter.
Dude, it would, man. And he created it was a dodecahedral. It looked like a dodecahedral. Let me see if I could pull it up real quick, because I'm wondering
would you mind finding that later? Because I do have to be up in like 6 hours.
Oh yeah, we could do that
100%.
100%. No, I'll send you a photo of it for sure. But I'm wondering if they could even produce these, because that would be something we could now I want to build
in theory. Yeah. I don't know. Again, this is largely stuff that just hasn't been tried. I mean, you have to have it a small enough structure that it'll, fit inside a bacteria and not kill it. So you're not talking massive structures, but you're talking the ability to produce some very interesting stuff at a very small scale at essentially endless production, as long as you have the input materials. And that's the appeal. I mean, it's like, okay, if I need thousands of kilos worth of this stuff, whoop-de-doo. I keep basically a magnetic drive spoon going in the bottom and keep a steam boiler going. Really basic.
Dude, I mean, it's literally, Don cracked me up with this one. Let me roll this comment up real quick.
So the blue thing at the top is the motor that runs down to the shaft and turns the impeller. That's a top feed impeller that'll just slowly spin it, and then they'll have a drain valve on the bottom. You can barely see it. The piping's going that way. So that's basically all the moving parts. Just that plus some valves.
I was gonna say, so this is what Don said and made me crack up. It's medical sourdough. Yeah. It is almost very much like it. It is. It's almost like a medical sourdough.
It's very similar to making beer. Actually, it's just a fermenter, but instead of running yeast, you're running bacteria. Generally, there are exceptions.
Now it's like you're gonna have me this weekend, man. I'm just going to I'm going to take a bunch of mushrooms. I'm going to be in my workshop, and I'm going to be building a homemade bioreactor at this point, man. It's like, because like, dude, like we could be utilized, because even what you're saying, like, yes, this is the industrial setup. Don't get me wrong, like, you know what I mean. But we could even make a more practical, like home use setup for this, and like, you know,
that's like probably that looks like maybe a 200 liter. So you're talking the inside of that might be a little bigger than a 55-gallon drum. Like, you could do it in a 55-gallon drum if you had a temperature control jacket on it, no problem. Like, if you look at the one on the right-hand side of the picture where it has that inset around the sight glass running up the side of it.
Yeah, I see what you're talking about, that right there.
Yeah, that is actually on the shell of the vessel, that big stack where the metal is wrapped around it. That's all insulation and heat exchange jacket under there. So they can run the steam in to heat it up and keep the temperature. It's basically just a thermostat. Yeah. It's just a jacket that runs around there with steam, and they've got a thermostat with a thermal probe in the middle. So It says, okay, this is whatever temperature. Oh, it got a little too cold. Open the steam valve, close the steam valve.
I'm sure you've got it all automated on there too, with like some kind of set point system as well. That's pretty awesome, though, man.
I mean,
gotta
that's
tell
what
you.
all the massive stuff is up there. That'd be like for adding nutrients, adding stuff, bubbler
I'm understanding
wands.
it. I'm understanding it. I've worked in gas plants. I've worked in a lot of other different plants and things like that. I'm understanding what's going on, and that's why it's like the gears in my head are like turning now. I'm like,
They're not that hard to build. I mean, the biggest thing is cleanliness, keeping them super, super, super clean. Because if there's any pits or holes or any way for stuff to get from outside to in, it'll contaminate the batch and ruin it. But those things are just an infinite gold mine, basically.
Well, dude, if there's one, I was going to say, if there's one thing that now you've got the gears in my head turning, and now it's like, because I'm all about for you. I mean, that's why Sam laughed. We make sourdough in this house. I make cheese, like freaking. I used to make my own wine. I brewed my own wine for a long time. So like, even though I don't drink anymore, but like I'm like ready to dive in. Man, I've even got like an old carboy I can go use. Like I'm literally like let's go set the shit up now. But no, this is blowing my mind, because the reason why it's blowing my mind is, imagine bringing this to the everyday person. Imagine bringing this to somebody who, like, let's even just take an example, like somebody who needs a medication to live a quality of life. Like, you know what I mean? And they could literally give the pharmaceutical company one of these and then go home and start to cultivate this medicine that they need for what I would even say is 100th of the price of what you would go to get it at a pharmacy for.
Well, I have to be careful not to mention company names. My NDAs have expired, but they still get touchy. There was a company some amount of time ago who built a project that was a facility that was in excess of $10 billion for the facility plus the bioreactors. It was absolutely massive. That was the engineer who I got to spill the tea on this one.
Mm-hmm.
That was the project he worked on. What do you think the return on investment for that $10 billion project was in years?
I don't know, man. I'm going to go ahead and, because literally the percentage of profit they're making already off the get-go is just obscene. Because what did you say? 71 million every 30 days
per reactor. Typically, a train of 10 to 20 of them.
Oh my God, dude! Like we would be talking in upwards of the trillions. That's just I'm gonna ballpark it there. I'm gonna say upwards of the trillions when it comes to the return on investment for these things.
No,
it's got to be absurd.
They put in over 10 billion. I'm not giving the exact number because I don't want to.
No, of course, yeah.
It was over 10 billion. The time they expected to take for that facility to pay for itself, 3 years. They were expecting to be making in excess of $3.5 billion a year off of that stuff. And the facility and the equipment in there, minus minor maintenance cost, has a lifespan of 40, 50 years with decent quality. Decent maintenance. So you're talking about making 30 to 40 billion dollars off that investment comfortably.
The inner anarchist on the inside of me at this moment in time is literally screaming like, you need to build like 10 of these, man. man, and start. Oh my goodness! But it's like it's amazing to me. Like, and what this kind of shows me too, this should be a red flag also to anybody watching this, that the narrative that they have for how things are made is fake and gay. Like 100%. Like they are literally there. I mean, you look at some of these medications. I mean, I know some people who are paying upwards of $300 to $400 a month for a 30-day supply.
That example that I gave was for the atorvastatin. The name brand is $14.33 a pill. The generic is down around 30 cents. So what you're seeing though is it's not costing them that much. It's sugar, water, whatever extra nutrients they need to put in. Like if it's a zinc-based compound, you add zinc. If it needs copper, you add copper solution. But that stuff's cheap. I mean, USP copper, buy a barrel of it. All this stuff, and basically your cost is your light bill and your water bill after that.
We have this alchemical treasure that's like quite literally right under our noses, and this is why I'm thankful for you, dude, because thank you for bringing this to light for me. Because now I'm not lying, man, the gears in my head are turning. They are turning right now, and I honestly there's a part of my subconscious that's like already drawing out a diagram. Okay, you're going to actually take the bacteria and put it in a culture first, and then you're going to inject the compound into the culture, and then you're going to take that culture after it's incorporated the compound, and you're going to throw it in this 55-gallon drum, and you're going to let it go to work. But no, I can see how the refinement process, I'm sure there's different ways. I'm sure there's different solvents you could potentially use to kind of clear away the debris, because I'm very familiar with extracting psychedelics, and I'm very familiar with making psychedelics too, and I know there's definitely some kind of solvent that would work for this.
Well, less so solvents, because you don't want to be adding extra chemistry to it. They actually use various types of centrifuge to spin out the heavier stuff. And I don't know, again, this is very simple in concept. The concept of the endlessly reproduced molecule inside a bacteria, that's where people kind of have missed learning about it, because it's an open secret. Nobody wants to admit that they've got a money printer. But there is a complexity of the process. Conceptually, it's simple, just like an airplane conceptually is very simple. You just move fast enough that the wind goes farther over the top of the wing than the bottom, and you lift, right? Easy, in theory. There is a lot of practical science. Like, you got to set up the centrifuges and filtering systems, and some of these things, like, we actually worked on one tank. It was a 8,000 liter, and its normal running temp was like 205, I think. So 205 degrees Fahrenheit. When they decided to do the harvest, they had to kill off the bacteria, because they don't want to let one live bacteria out of that tank, because that is a gold mine for anybody with a scoop.
Yeah.
They freeze it. That 8,000 liter tank, which is what, 2,000 gallons, give or take, it froze solid, into a slush within 3 minutes, because they shut the steam off. They vented liquid nitrogen into the cooling shell and turned it into a slush in less than 5 minutes. And the temperature shift was so much that it hopped the whole tank up off the ground when it went bung.
I could see that. From that insane temperature. I mean, you look at even with with steam, when there's temperature shifts in the piping, dude, they start clack, moving around and all of that, and things like that. So no, I could definitely see that happening.
It pulled the anchor bolts out of the concrete.
Oh yeah.
And the dude just goes over with a hammer, is like, tink, there, putting them back. Why do you even
This is-
bother? It stops it from shifting this way. Like,
oh my god, dude! Like, all right, my mind's blown, man. I don't want to keep you too much longer. I know you got to
You're good,
be up
brother.
at work tomorrow. I know you got to be up at work tomorrow. I honestly, I could continue talking about this because now like the gears in my brain are turning. I want to sit one-on-one with you at some point off air and kind of like pick your brain on this too, because I foresee there is a way to make it ergonomic and practical for the everyday person to have. There is. It would
at
take
least on a
some
community
refinement.
basis, I think.
Yeah.
You know, much like the way a water tower is a community utility, this potentially is a case where a community could, like, if you needed stocks of medicine, you could potentially have a community reactor and just have a sample bank where, oh, hey, we need to make more of this medicine, pull the sample out, drop it into the tank, use the seed tank afterward to get a replacement sample, put it back in the deep freeze, and run off your batch of whatever.
Dude,
About the only thing it won't work for is antibiotics for obvious reasons.
Interesting. Well, yeah, definitely. Well, you know, we still have really, I mean, you know, just let some mold grow on an orange as far as that goes. That's where we still have simplicity
Old
with
school.
that method, the old school way. But shoot, Nick, man, I want to say thank you so much for coming on. If there's
pleasure.
anything I want to say to you, man, you got a warrior mentality when it comes to healing. That's what we all need to have when it comes to our healing. You know, not being afraid to go to those deepest, darkest pits of ourselves and to face head on, you know, these things that we've been carrying with us, these traumas, this darkness from all of these experiences that have happened to us, whether in this lifetime or past lifetimes. You know,
Thank you.
Yeah, man, you showcase the warrior mindset when it comes to healing, man, and that's amazing. I commend you for that because, you know, there's still a lot of people in this community who tiptoe around it, and your story, man, is inspiring. It's inspiring, and you know, even for what you went through, the thought loop, you know, the instance of healing that past life karma, like you took it head on, man, and fuck yeah, that's all I got to say about that. Also, too, yeah, man, another thing you showed us. Go ahead, what were you say?
Sorry.
No, go ahead, say it, man. No, you're all good. Say it.
I value you greatly for being willing to put out raw, unfiltered stuff
Thank
just
you, man.
as it is without kind of tiptoeing around and making it pretty and fluffy. It's nice to have a place where stuff can be said openly, where you don't feel like, well, you know, that's not really very nice. It's like, well, screw it. You know, I'm going to throw this out here. And I really value that. So thank you again, Stephen. It's been a real honor getting a chance to know you.
Absolutely, man. Thank you, man. Well, that's what it's about, dude. I wouldn't have it any other way, man. And that's why, like, you know, like, and you know, and I never try to come off perfect. I know some people, and that's why in the beginning I was a little bit rigid at first, but then I was like, you know, back in season 1, I was a little bit rigid, but then it was like, I was like, no, dude, people need to see you. And like, that's kind of what it is, man. And, you know, and that's everybody who's going through their spiritual evolution right now, their awakening, we're all just like each other. You know what I mean? Like we all have bad habits. We all curse. Like, you know, we all have some pretty interesting opinions and viewpoints, man. And you know, for me, it's like my life would be a shell if I could not live in my authenticity. It would be an absolute shell, and it would not be a life worth living to me, man. So I appreciate you so much for saying that, man. And you're always welcome back here. Always, man. Just let me know when you want to come on next or if there's anything you want to talk about. But in the meantime, so like I said, guys, I have Nick's X profile. Thank you, Don. I appreciate that. I have Nick's X profile in both the Rumble description and the YouTube description of the video. If you want to go follow Nick and chat with him, please do that. But if you have anywhere else anybody could find you or anything else that you're working on, now is the time to let them know.
Not particularly at the moment. if you X is about all I use. I can't even remember my Discord or Telegram or what have you. I don't really have any of that set up. X is pretty well where I go, and I'm active on there. I shit post on a regular basis, and you never know what sort of memes, dark sense of humor, whack stuff I'm going to be posting. So if you see me on there, say hi, DM, whatever. I'm always up to talk with anybody who's real.
Dude, I love it, man. And like, I agree with you. If you don't shit post every once in a while, you're probably not a real person. And that I agree with.
You got to have some fun in life. What's the point of being here if it's all serious and trying to be perfect enough to get into heaven or whatever? It's like,
That's what the divine wants, man. The divine wants us to laugh. Like, yep. I mean, and of course, you guys know, a light heart plus a free mind are two of the best things that you can have in this world, guys. Well, can you hang out for a second, Nick? Can you hang out for a couple minutes, or do you got to go? Because I'm going to end the show. Cool. So yeah, you hang out for just a sec. I'm going to play the outro. Guys, thanks again for joining me for another BG-Cast Wednesday Live podcast. Mind was blown tonight with bioreactors and the fact that we should all have one. But other than that, we got Kyle from the Brothers Blue coming on next week. He's going to be, we have half of the Brothers Blue coming on. And he is going to be discussing some of his progress and his evolution. And I'm actually kind of really happy to see that. That Kyle's been here checking out the show. Same thing with Cody. But other than that, guys, thanks again for joining us. If you liked what you heard, give a like, follow, and a subscribe. And we'll be back next Wednesday, the same time, to do this all over again. Have a good night, everybody. Take care. And of course, you know what we say here. Stay safe, stay free, but most importantly, stay sovereign. That's number one. All righty, guys. Have a good night.
Collectively together, you were born to rotate with the crowd. You were born to sink with the sacred spiral. The Hercules stream is proof. The cosmos hummers the divergent. BG-Cast brings us that Hercules energy. It's here to save the day. You won't stay lost in the dark. Here is your shot with BG kept beside you. Can we rise alone?